Welcome back to the Crash Bandicoot Marathon. To be honest, I thought that Crash was never coming back. That was until the 2016 Sony press conference at E3. For me, it was totally unexpected. I really thought that they were leaving him dead in the water. But nope, they decided to bring him back with Crash and Sane Trilogy. Since the announcement, I've been talking about 3D platformers in general and the state of affairs with them. 3D platforming games are in a dark state. There really hasn't been many releases, and it really didn't look like they were ever going to make a return. However, I was of the belief that if Crash and Sane Trilogy did well, that the 3D platformer might make a bit of a resurgence. Will they ever be as popular as they were in the 90s? Probably not, but it'll be nice to see some new and old fans get into the genre. And by the way, Sony, still waiting on that Jak 4 announcement. So, get on that, thanks. Anyway, sorry for the long-winded intro, I just wanted to get my thoughts out there. This video is going to be a little bit different than my normal review type videos. Since this is a remake, I'm not going to be talking about the games as a whole. I'm just going to be focusing on the differences from the original trilogy to Crash and Sane Trilogy. First off, I'm going to be starting by talking about things that changed in each individual game, then I'm going to be moving on to things that changed in all three games. Anyways, let's get into it with Crash 1.
Crash 1 definitely needed the most change out of all the three games. While still being a somewhat good game, it was very, very unpolished. Luckily, it got the biggest upgrade in Sane Trilogy. My biggest complaint with Crash 1 was the control, and in Sane Trilogy, it is much better. Now, I am somewhat disappointed to find that the slide jump was not included in Crash 1, since I'd heard that it was going to be appearing in the game, but nonetheless, it still was massively improved. Crash doesn't feel nearly as heavy, although he does still fall quickly. It's more in regards to his mid-air control that I'm talking about. It helps that there's analog control now as well. It makes it so that you can recover if you accidentally make a false jump, so long as you have quick enough reactions, because this game is still hard. It still has tough enemy placement, difficult platforming, and tons of bottomless pits, but with the upgrade in control and hit detection, it makes it feel like it's the player's fault when you die. Other than the control, the biggest change is actually lighting. I didn't realize how much of an issue this was in the original game, but after playing Sane Trilogy, it's a huge difference, especially in temple levels like Jaws of Darkness. I'm pretty sure that the camera angles are the same as in Crash 1, so depth perception should still be an issue, but to be honest, I found that it was easier to make these jumps in this game because I could see the platforms better. Now to talk about saving and gems. Saving has been turned into auto-saving in every game in the trilogy, so no more bonus stage saving. It is done automatically, which is awesome. For gems, there's also a different system. Sane Trilogy is much easier when regarding gem collection in Crash 1, and somehow it still remains very difficult. This is just a testament to how hard the original game is, because this game improves a lot to make gem collection more forgiving. The inventory from Crash 3 is now in Crash 1, so you can see how many boxes you need. On top of that, checkpoint boxes save your box total, so you don't have to beat every single stage without dying to get the box gems, for the most part. I say for the most part because to get colored gems you have to complete the stage without dying and break every box. And of course, slippery climb is included. However, they did make it so that dying in the bonus stages doesn't count toward an actual death, so you can retry if you die in the bonus stages, which is also a new feature put into this version of the game, because originally you couldn't retry a bonus stage after you failed it the first time. I believe I forgot to mention that in my Crash 1 video. And even with all these changes, this game still remains difficult. But all of the difficulty is fair, and it's the reason that Crash 1 is so great in Sane Trilogy. A new addition is Relic Challenges. That's right, Relic Challenges have been added for replay value, and they don't really work. The stages in Crash 1 aren't really designed for speedrunning. There's a huge amount of randomness involved in these time trials because of the sheer amount of moving platforms and no way to change your jump height like in Crash 2 and 3. But it's not like the relics hurt anything gameplay-wise, they are just there in case you want to try. The last change is the music. The stage songs are remixed in Crash 1, and it mostly improves the soundtrack and makes the songs more memorable and catchy. Occasionally the songs can lose some atmospheric touch, but nothing sounds bad or out of place. Well, that's about it for Crash 1, so let's take a look at Crash Bandicoot 2 Cortex Strikes Back. To be honest, I don't really have much to say about Crash 2. It's mostly the same game as the original game, with a few differences. First, the animal riding is a little off. The control is extremely loose, and I don't know if this is the PS4, but it felt like the control was lagging at points. It's possible that it was the Bluetooth controller lag thingy, but it happened a couple times during animal levels, so I don't know. Also, they somehow made the jetpack control worse. Hats off to you guys, because I didn't think it could get worse than the original jetpack, but it is. The second big point are the new ice physics. They feel heavier. You build momentum slower and you stop slower, which makes Cold Hard Crash even harder. I already couldn't get the gem in this level in the original, but I really wasn't trying. Well, I was really trying to 100% all the games this time around, and I spent 2 hours on this death route. Oh, that's not so long, is it? That's just how long it took me to get to the end of the death route. I remind you that you have to go through the death route and then return to the beginning later. And what do I do immediately upon getting to the end? Careen off of the edge without collecting the gem or hitting the boxes. Well, that's about enough disappointment for me today. And once again, this level prevents me from 100%ing the game. Relics were also added to Crash 2 as well as the Crash Dash, now renamed the Speed Shoes. But it's the same with this game, they really don't add that much. Let's move on to Crash 3. Once again, there isn't too much that is significantly different here. There are, however, two main things that I noticed gameplay-wise. One of these changes was good, and one was not. The good change is to the additional abilities, more specifically the double jump and death tornado spin. Now, I didn't mention this in my Crash 3 video, but I had a hard time getting these abilities to register. Like, the input of my button presses weren't actually being registered. I never had this problem in Sane Trilogy. I've never heard anyone else mention this, so maybe it's only specific to me, but it made the game flow better and made me want to use these abilities more. That change are the vehicles. What in the hell did they do to these? All of them feel like they have some weird input lag similar to the polar bear in Crash 2. Oddly enough, the animal riding levels in this game feel as good as the original, so I don't know what is going on here. The motorcycle is okay, but still feels laggy, but the biplane and jet ski are god-awful. I don't know if the biplane levels would even be possible without the new aiming reticle, because the input lag would make it unbelievably hard to shoot where you want to without it. And the jet ski is horrible. I'm sure you all know by now how much they screwed up here. Top speed was decreased, control is wonky, and the camera constantly stays behind Coco, so it's hard to turn around if you want to hit a box you missed or something like that. But those were the only two noticeable changes I found to be worth talking about. Now let's talk about the things that changed in all three games. The main change, of course, here is the graphics. This game is breathtaking. They keep all of the original charm and add in great polish, lighting effects, character models, and overall just looks so great while keeping the cartoony nature of the 3D platformer. Lighting in particular is something they really perfected. My favorite graphical effect are the sewer levels in Crash 2. They just have this glow to them and it makes for an incredible experience. Music has remained similar to the originals, but a lot of the tracks are slightly remixed and it's a great listen. I still love Crash 2 soundtrack the most, but the remixes in Crash 1 have crept up the list and are challenging Crash 3 for my second favorite in the trilogy. Okay, there are a lot of minor things that change, so we're just gonna have a speed round. Go! Autosaving is present in all games. Control is the same in all games with one exception that I'll talk about later. Loading screens are long, but give hints to the levels in the games. Bouncing off enemies and crates reduces Crash's momentum. Bouncy crates take 5 jumps to break in all 3 games. And lastly, you can play as Coco! So there's that. Now I mentioned control is the same in all games, but in Crash 1 you land much quicker after jumping off a box, which made jumping on boxes in long chains flow better and quicker. This feature is not in Crash 2 or 3, and I don't know why. I thought it was very cool in the Crash 1 remake, but it's totally absent from the other games. Now, I have seen a lot of people say that Sane Trilogy is actually harder than the originals in certain regards, and the main one is collision detection. This is the single biggest difference in Sane Trilogy. Collision detection is much less forgiving when landing your jumps. From CrashMania.net, quote, "The tolerance for landing on a platform or crate's edge is much lower. Crash slips off even if you are jumping in place. This makes a lot of jumps very unforgiving, and some levels become extremely hard as a result." End quote. This is a very noticeable difference. In the originals, as long as you had at least a pixel of Crash's foot touching the platform, then you would normally not slip off. In Crash Sane Trilogy, you must land squarely on the platform to make it work. Is this an issue? Absolutely not. It's the way it should be, but it will take some getting used to for the Crash veterans. Okay, I think I've gone over most of the important changes, so it's time to ask the question that's on everyone's mind. Is Crash Bandicoot Sane Trilogy the definitive version of the 3 games? And the answer is... sort of. I feel as though half of Sane Trilogy is better than the originals and half is not. To start, this is the best version of Crash 1 by far. In fact, I like this version of Crash 1 more than I like the original Crash 2, and yes, I did just say that. As for Crash 2, the original is the better version for sure. The animal riding levels are so much more fun, the jetpack, while still bad, is easier to control, and the ice physics are better. As for Crash 3, it's a mixed bag. The normal platforming levels I would say are just as good, if not better, but the vehicles are not as good. If you can somehow play the vehicle stages from the original and the platforming stages in the new one, then you should do that.
And that is the end of the Crash Bandicoot Marathon. Thank you guys so much for supporting this impromptu video marathon. My original reviews ended up getting tons of support and were very well received overall, so thank you guys for that. Also, thank you, new subscribers. My sub growth, whether it be from my reviews or countdowns, has been very good over the past month, so thanks for that. Anyways, guys, I will see you next time when I tackle who knows what game. I really don't have any idea what I'm going to be doing. See you guys next time. Peace. Man, I was actually able to do this without a whoa meme, so that's good.